The quantum compass spun wildly in Nadia Winter's palm as she approached the ancient temple entrance. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cave's cool air, her dark eyes fixed on the device's erratic needle. After 15 years of quantum archaeology, she'd never seen readings like these. "Dr. Nakamura, are you seeing this?" She spoke into her comm device, her voice echoing off the crystalline walls. The cave system beneath the Icelandic glacier had revealed many secrets over the past week. But this was different. Extraordinary, her mentor's voice crackled through the device. "The quantum fluctuations are off the charts. Whatever's generating that signal, it's not using any technology we've cataloged before." Nadia pressed her hand against the temple's entrance, feeling the subtle vibration of power thrumming beneath the surface. Ancient symbols carved into the black stone pulsed with a faint blue light at her touch. She'd seen similar script at other sites, but never this active, never this alive. "The translations suggest this was a prison," she said, brushing dark hair from her face as she studied the glowing text. "But not for any ordinary prisoner. The symbols keep referring to something they called the divine spark." The entrance groaned, stone grinding against stone as it began to open at her touch. Nadia stepped back, her quantum scanner beeping frantically as energy readings spiked. The air itself seemed to crackle with potential. "Nadia, maybe we should wait for the rest of the team," Dr. Nakamura suggested, concern evident in his voice. "These readings are unprecedented. We don't know what we're dealing with." But Nadia was already stepping through the doorway, drawn forward by something she couldn't explain. The main chamber opened before her, a vast circular room with a domed ceiling that seemed to capture and amplify the blue light pulsing through the temple's veins. And there, suspended in the center of the chamber, she saw her. A woman, or something that appeared to be a woman, hung suspended in a web of shimmering chains. Her skin was pale as moonlight, her hair a cascade of starlight that moved as if underwater. The chains that bound her weren't physical metal, but rather streams of pure quantum energy, holding her in a state between moments. "Jun," Nadia whispered, using her mentor's first name for the first time in years. "I found her. I found Thalia." The suspended figure's eyes opened, revealing irises that contained swirling galaxies. They fixed on Nadia with an intensity that made her breath catch. The quantum compass in her hand shattered, unable to process the energy suddenly flooding the chamber. 15,427 visitors. A voice echoed in Nadia's mind, smooth as silk, but ancient as the stars. All came seeking power. All left disappointed. "What do you seek, Nadia Winters?" Nadia's hand trembled as she reached for her scanner, trying to document what she was seeing. "You know my name." A smile curved the bound goddess's lips. "I know many things. The quantum threads that bind me connect past, present, and future. I have watched you grow, watched you search, watched you question everything you were taught to believe." "The legends said you were a myth," Nadia said, her scientific mind struggling to process what she was seeing. "A story created to explain quantum phenomena that ancient peoples couldn't understand." "And yet here I am," Thalia replied, the chains rippling with energy as she spoke. "Neither myth nor science, but something in between. The question remains, what do you seek?" Before Nadia could answer, her comm crackled to life. "Nadia, we're picking up multiple vehicles approaching the glacier." Dr. Nakamura's voice was urgent now. "Military grade. Someone else knows about the temple." "The organization comes," Thalia said calmly. "They have sought me for centuries, hoping to harness my power for their own ends. But only one with both the knowledge of science and the wisdom to question it can truly understand what I offer." Nadia's mind raced. The Organization for Celestial Security. She'd heard whispers about them. A shadow group that collected and controlled ancient technologies. If they reached the temple first. "What are you?" she asked, even as she heard the distant sound of helicopters. "Really?" "I am change," Thalia replied. "I am the spark that ignited your quantum revolution centuries before your people were ready. I am the whisper of innovation that drives humanity forward. And I am a prisoner, bound by those who feared what humanity might become with my guidance. The temple trembled as vehicles approached above. Nadia looked at the entrance, then back at the bound goddess. Years of scientific training told her to wait, to document, to study. But something else, something deeper, urged her forward. "If I help you," she said slowly, "will you help me understand?" Thalia's cosmic eyes seemed to peer into her soul. "Understanding requires change, Nadia Winters. Are you prepared for yours?" The sound of boots on stone echoed from the tunnel. Nadia made her decision, reaching for the nearest quantum chain. The moment her fingers touched the energy stream, the world exploded into light, and everything she thought she knew about reality began to change. The dreams began that night. Nadia found herself floating in a sea of quantum possibilities, each reality branching out like crystalline threads before her eyes. Thalia's voice echoed through her consciousness, teaching her things that made her previous understanding of quantum physics seem like child's play. She awoke in her makeshift camp at the glacier's base, her notebook filled with equations she didn't remember writing. Dr. Nakamura had insisted they retreat when the organization's forces arrived, but they hadn't gone far. Now, 3 days later, she watched through high-powered binoculars as black-clad figures swarmed the temple entrance. "They're trying to bypass the quantum locks," Dr. Nakamura said, reviewing the data on his tablet. His weathered face showed concern as he studied the readings. "But they don't understand the principles involved. The temple's defenses are unlike anything we've seen before." Nadia touched the strange mark on her palm where she'd grabbed the quantum chain. It shimmed with a faint blue light when she thought about Thalia. "They're going about it all wrong," she murmured. "The locks aren't technological. Not really. They're more like thoughts given form." Jun looked at her sharply. "How do you know that?" Before she could answer, a sleek black vehicle pulled up to the organization's camp. A tall man stepped out, his silver hair gleaming in the Arctic sun. Even from this distance, his authority was evident in every movement. "Director Marcus Vale," Jun whispered, ducking lower behind their cover. "I didn't think he'd come himself. This is worse than I feared." Nadia watched as Vale surveyed the temple entrance, his posture radiating confidence. "You know him." "By reputation. He's been leading the organization for decades, though he barely looks 50. Some say he's found ways to use recovered artifacts to extend his life." Jun's hand trembled slightly as he lowered his binoculars. "If he's here, they won't stop until they breach the temple." A whisper brushed Nadia's mind, familiar now after days of dreams. "He seeks immortality, but understands nothing of true eternal life." "We need to get back inside," Nadia said suddenly, standing up, "before they figure out how to break through." "That's suicide." Jun grabbed her arm. "The organization has the entire site locked down, and even if we got past them, what then? We barely understood what we found in there." Nadia looked at her mentor, seeing the genuine concern in his eyes. "What if I told you I've been learning? That somehow Thalia has been teaching me?" Jun released her arm, his expression shifting from concern to scientific curiosity. "The dreams you mentioned, they're more than dreams, aren't they?" She nodded, holding up her palm to show him the shimmering mark. "Every night, she shows me more. The quantum chains aren't just restraints. They're a network, connecting all of space and time. The ancients who built them weren't primitive. They were working with principles we're only beginning to understand." A commotion at the temple entrance drew their attention. Vale was approaching the quantum locks, holding some kind of device. Energy crackled around the entrance, the ancient symbols flaring bright enough to see even at this distance. He mustn't break through. Thalia's voice was urgent in Nadia's mind. His device will destabilize the entire network. All will be lost. "We need help," Nadia said, pulling out her phone. "And I know just who to call." Hours later, as the Arctic sun hung low on the horizon, a helicopter approached from the south. It was unmarked, flying low to avoid detection. At the controls was Cassandra Reed, a woman Nadia had met during her graduate studies. Now one of the organization's top agents, Cassandra had always seemed different from her colleagues, more interested in understanding than controlling. The helicopter landed in a sheltered valley 2 miles from the temple. Cassandra stepped out, her dark skin standing out against the snow, her organization uniform modified with personal touches that subtly defied regulation. "This better be good, Winters," she said, but her smile was warm. "I'm risking everything coming here. He mustn't break through." Thalia's voice was urgent in Nadia's mind. "His device will destabilize the entire network. All will be lost." "We need help," Nadia said, pulling out her phone. "And I know just who to call." Hours later, as the Arctic sun hung low on the horizon, a helicopter approached from the south. It was unmarked, flying low to avoid detection. At the controls was Cassandra Reed, a woman Nadia had met during her graduate studies. Now one of the organization's top agents, Cassandra had always seemed different from her colleagues, more interested in understanding than controlling. The helicopter landed in a sheltered valley 2 miles from the temple. Cassandra stepped out, her dark skin standing out against the snow, her organization uniform modified with personal touches that subtly defied regulation. "This better be good, Winters," she said, but her smile was warm. "I'm risking everything coming here." "Trust me," Nadia replied, showing her the glowing mark. "What's happening here is bigger than the organization, bigger than all of us. And Vale is about to make a terrible mistake." As if to emphasize her point, a low rumble echoed across the glacier. They all turned to see energy crackling around the temple entrance, the quantum locks fighting against Vale's attempts to breach them. "He's going to tear reality apart if he keeps that up," Cassandra said, her expression grim. "The quantum readings from his device are off the charts." "Help us get inside," Nadia pleaded. "You've seen the organization's archives. You know there's more to this than what they tell their own agents." Cassandra studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "There's a maintenance tunnel, built when they first discovered the temple complex decades ago. It's not on the current maps." She pulled out a tablet, showing them the route. "I can get you in, but after that, you're on your own." As they prepared to move out, Nadia felt Thalia's presence stronger than ever. "Choose wisely, Nadia Winters. The moment of convergence approaches, and all paths lead to change. The only question is, what kind of change will you bring?" The maintenance tunnel was barely wide enough to crawl through, its walls slick with ice. Nadia led the way, guided by the pulsing light in her palm and Thalia's whispers in her mind. Behind her, Jun and Cassandra followed in tense silence. "The quantum fluctuations are getting stronger," Jun whispered, checking his instruments. "Whatever Vale's doing up there, it's affecting the entire temple complex." "He seeks to drain my power," Thalia's voice echoed in Nadia's thoughts. "But the chains that bind me are woven into the fabric of reality itself. To break them wrongly would unleash chaos." They emerged into a lower chamber of the temple, one Nadia hadn't seen before. Ancient murals covered the walls, depicting a story that made her breath catch. They showed Thalia not as a prisoner, but as a teacher, sharing knowledge with early humans. Then came images of war, of humans using that knowledge to create terrible weapons. The binding wasn't a punishment, Nadia realized, touching one of the murals. It was a compromise. Cassandra moved closer, studying the images. A compromise between whom? "Between Thalia and humanity itself," Jun said softly, his scanner forgotten in his hand. "She chose to be bound rather than watch us destroy ourselves with power we weren't ready to handle." The temple shuddered again, more violently this time. Dust and ice fell from the ceiling as Vale's attempts to breach the quantum chains grew more aggressive. In Nadia's mind, she felt Thalia's pain as the network strained against the assault. "But we're ready now, aren't we?" Nadia asked, both to herself and to the goddess whose presence she felt growing stronger. "That's why you've been reaching out, why you led me here." "Humanity stands at a crossroads," Thalia replied. Veil represents one path, the desire to control, to dominate, to extend one's own power indefinitely. But there is another way. You've felt it in your dreams, seen it in the equations I shared. Another explosion rocked the temple. Through the ceiling, they could hear Veil shouting orders to his team. The quantum locks were beginning to fail. "We need to make a decision," Cassandra said, drawing her weapon. "Either we stop Veil, or we do something about those chains. We don't have time for both." Jun stepped forward, his face set with determination. "I'll deal with Veil. I've known him longer than any of you. I know his weaknesses." He turned to Nadia. "Whatever you're going to do it fast." Before anyone could object, he was heading up the passageway toward the main chamber. Cassandra hesitated, then moved to follow him. "I'll watch his back. You do what you need to do." Nadia ran through the tunnels, following the pull in her mind, until she reached the central chamber from a different angle. From here, she could see Veil's device attached to the quantum chains, trying to siphon their energy. The chains themselves were beginning to fray, reality flickering around their breaking points. "The moment of choice has come," Thalia said as Nadia approached. "To break the chains correctly requires understanding both the science and the purpose behind them. Are you prepared to bear that responsibility?" Veil's voice boomed through the chamber. "Step away from the artifact, Dr. Winters." He stood at the main entrance, his device humming with dangerous levels of power. Jun and Cassandra were nowhere to be seen. "You don't understand what you're doing," Nadia called back, moving closer to the quantum chains. "This isn't about power or control. It never was." "I understand perfectly," Veil replied, his smile cold. 15,000 years of scientific advancement, bound up in chains. Think of what humanity could achieve if we controlled that power. "But that's just it," Nadia said, reaching for the nearest chain. "It was never meant to be controlled, only understood." She grabbed the quantum chain with both hands, letting all she had learned in her dreams flow through her. The equations, the principles, the deeper truths behind reality itself. They all came together in a moment of perfect clarity. Veil's device exploded as the quantum network recognized Nadia's intent. The chains began to dissolve, not breaking but transforming, flowing into her like streams of liquid light. Thalia descended from her suspension, her cosmic eyes fixed on Nadia with an expression of pride. "What have you done?" Veil demanded, staring in horror as his plans literally dissolved before him. "What was always meant to happen." Thalia spoke aloud for the first time, her voice filling the chamber with harmonic overtones. "The chains were never meant to be permanent, only to last until humanity produced someone who could understand their true purpose." Nadia felt the quantum energy settling inside her, not overwhelming her, but merging, teaching, transforming. She understood now why she had been chosen, why all her years of study had led to this moment. The power was never meant to be hoarded, she said, looking at her hands as they shimmered with stellar light. It was meant to be shared, to be taught, to help humanity grow responsibly. Veil reached for his weapon, but Jun and Cassandra burst into the chamber, training their own weapons on him. "It's over, Marcus," Cassandra said. "The Council has already been informed of your actions here." Thalia moved to stand beside Nadia, their energies resonating in harmony. "The real work begins now," the goddess said softly. "Are you ready to become a teacher, as I once was?" Nadia looked at her mentor Jun, at Cassandra who had risked everything to help them, even at Veil who had sought power for all the wrong reasons. She understood now that true advancement came not from control, but from understanding. "Yes," she said, feeling the quantum knowledge flowing through her. "I'm ready to show humanity the right path forward." The transformation began slowly at first, like dawn breaking over a frozen landscape. Nadia felt the quantum knowledge flowing through her veins, restructuring her understanding of reality with each passing moment. The temple's crystalline walls pulsed in rhythm with her newfound power, responding to her presence just as they had to Thalia's. "The merging is more complete than I expected," Thalia observed, her cosmic eyes studying Nadia with interest. Your scientific background has given you a framework to understand these energies that the ancients lacked. Vale remained under Cassandra's watchful eye, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. You have no idea what you've done. Winters. The organization has protocols for containing quantum anomalies. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Cassandra said, her weapon unwavering. The Council has reviewed your private files, Marcus. They know about the life extension experiments, the forbidden technologies you've been hoarding. They're shutting down your entire division. John approached Nadia cautiously, his scientific curiosity warring with concern for his former student. The quantum readings, they're unlike anything we've ever recorded. How do you feel? Nadia looked at her mentor, seeing him now on multiple levels. His physical form, the quantum patterns of his thoughts, the timeline of his life stretching behind and ahead of him. I feel like I'm finally seeing clearly. The quantum principles we've been studying, they're just the surface. Reality is so much more complex, so much more beautiful. A rumble shook the temple, but this time it wasn't from any external attack. The entire structure was responding to the change in its primary occupant, reconfiguring itself for a new purpose. The temple was never just a prison, Philia explained, gesturing to the transforming walls. It was designed to be a place of learning, of transition. Now it can serve its true purpose again. But even as she spoke, alarms began blaring from Cassandra's equipment. We've got multiple organization strike teams inbound. Vale's Deadman switch must have activated, standard containment protocol for quantum-level events. They cannot be allowed to interfere. Philia's voice carried an edge of concern. The transformation is at a critical phase. Any disruption now could have catastrophic consequences. Nadia felt it too. The delicate balance of energies flowing through her, seeking equilibrium. She turned to Jun and Cassandra. How long do we have? Minutes at most, Cassandra replied, already moving to secure the entrance. Standard procedure is to neutralize the quantum event by any means necessary. They'll bring in temporal dampeners, reality anchors, the whole arsenal. Then we need to accelerate the process, Nadia said, turning to Philia. Show me how. The goddess nodded, her form beginning to shimmer with increased power. It will be dangerous. Are you certain? Since when has the pursuit of knowledge been safe? Nadia smiled, extending her hands. Philia took them, and the world exploded into light. Knowledge poured between them like a river breaking through a dam. Quantum mechanics, temporal physics, the fundamental forces that shaped reality itself. Nadia felt her consciousness expanding, growing to encompass concepts that her human mind had never been meant to contain. The temple responded, its walls becoming transparent, revealing the quantum structure of reality itself. Energy crackled between the crystals, forming new patterns, new possibilities. Vale broke free from his captors in the chaos, reaching for something in his jacket. If I can't control this power, no one will. He pulled out a small device, its core pulsing with dangerous energy. A quantum destabilizer, Cassandra gasped. Marcus, no. It'll tear apart the entire temporal field. But Vale had already activated the device. Reality began to fracture around them, the carefully balanced energies of the transformation threatening to collapse into chaos. Nadia felt the disturbance through her enhanced senses. Time itself was beginning to unravel around them. Through her connection with Philia, she saw the cascade of consequences that would follow. A temporal earthquake that would shatter the barriers between dimensions. Help me contain it, she called to Philia, reaching out with her new powers. Together, they created a quantum barrier around Vale's device, but the energies were too chaotic, too destructive. The more they tried to contain them, the more violently they reacted. There's only one way, Philia said softly. We must complete the transformation now. Consequences be damned. Are you ready to become something more than human? Nadia looked at Jun, seeing the pride and fear in his eyes. She looked at Cassandra, who nodded in understanding. Finally, she looked at Vale, whose attempt to destroy what he couldn't control would either end in catastrophe or catalyze the greatest advancement in human history. "I'm ready," she said, and surrendered herself completely to the transformation. The transformation consumed Nadia like a star going supernova. Her consciousness expanded beyond the confines of physical form, merging with the quantum fabric of reality itself. Through her connection with Thalia, she understood at last the true nature of divinity. Not power to be hoarded, but knowledge to be shared. Vale's quantum destabilizer imploded in on itself, crushed by the combined force of two beings operating on a quantum level. The temporal earthquake it had threatened to unleash was redirected, transformed into a wave of pure possibility that spread outward from the temple. The barriers between human and divine were always artificial. Thalia's voice echoed through multiple dimensions. "You understand that now, don't you?" Nadia did. She saw the long game Thalia had played, allowing herself to be bound not to protect humanity from power, but to ensure they developed the wisdom to use it properly. The quantum chains had never been about imprisonment, but about waiting for the right moment, the right person. The temple had become a nexus of transformation, its crystalline walls now transparent to quantum energy. Through them, Nadia could see the organization's strike teams arriving, their weapons and temporal dampeners useless against what she had become. "Stand down," Cassandra called to her former colleagues, her voice carrying authority. "The situation is under control." Under control. Vale laughed bitterly from where he knelt, his failed device a smoking ruin at his feet. "Look at her. She's become exactly what the organization was created to prevent, a quantum-level entity with the power to reshape reality." "No." Jum stepped forward, his eyes filled with understanding as he watched his former student's transformation. "She's become what humanity was always meant to become, a bridge between the physical and the quantum, between science and divinity." Nadia felt her awareness spreading further, touching minds across the globe. She saw the impact the quantum wave was having, not changing people forcibly, but awakening possibilities within them. The ability to perceive quantum reality, to understand the deeper principles that governed existence, was spreading like ripples in a pond. "It was never about controlling power," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made reality itself vibrate in sympathy. "It was about growing into it responsibly, about understanding the connection between all things." Thalia moved to stand beside her, their energies intermingling. "The age of separation is ending. Humanity has reached the point where science and divinity can merge, where understanding can replace fear." The organization's strike teams lowered their weapons, many of them falling to their knees as the quantum awakening touched their minds. They were experiencing firsthand the difference between controlling power and understanding it. "What happens now?" Cassandra asked, holstering her weapon as she felt her own consciousness expanding. "Now," Nadia smiled, the expression visible across multiple planes of reality. "We teach. The temple will become what it was always meant to be, a place of learning, where those ready to understand can come to study the true nature of reality." Vale looked up, his face showing the first signs of comprehension, as the quantum awareness touched him. "All this time, we were so focused on containing power, we never considered the possibility of growing into it naturally. The organization will need to evolve," Cassandra said, helping him to his feet, "from containment to education, from control to understanding." Jun stepped forward, tears in his eyes as he watched his student become something beyond his wildest scientific dreams. "I'll help coordinate with the academic community. The world needs to understand what's happening, needs to prepare for the changes to come." Nadia felt the rightness of it all, the convergence of paths that had led to this moment. She saw timelines stretching out before them, possibilities branching and merging. The future was not set, but the potential for growth, for understanding, for evolution beyond the artificial barriers between science and divine, was unlimited. "The real work begins now," she said, extending her hands to create a quantum display of reality's underlying structure. "Who's ready for their first lesson?" The temple hummed with power, no longer a prison but a school for humanity's next great leap forward. Through the quantum network that now connected all things, Nadia felt the stirring of minds worldwide awakening to new possibilities. Thalia's long wait was over, and humanity's true evolution was finally beginning. "Just remember," Thalia said softly, her cosmic eyes twinkling with ancient wisdom, "the greatest power lies not in reshaping reality, but in helping others understand it." Nadia nodded, preparing to teach her first class in quantum consciousness. The chains that had bound Thalia for 15 millennia had been transformed into bridges of understanding, connecting all who were ready to learn. The future stretched out before them, bright with possibility, as humanity took its first steps into a new age of enlightenment. Vale, Jun, and Cassandra took their places among the first students, their minds opening to the quantum reality that had always existed just beyond their perception. The age of division, between science and divine, between power and wisdom, between human and cosmic, was ending. And in the temple that had once been a prison, now transformed into humanity's greatest school, the real revolution began, not with power, but with understanding. Not with control, but with knowledge freely shared. The quantum awakening had begun, and nothing would ever be the same.